So here I am in my office where I keep all my gear. I recently got a few new pieces of furniture to store everything, so it's much less cluttered, right? But I still got some clutter around, right? And I decided, there were so many pieces of gear that I wanted to talk about. Do I do like a bunch of separate reviews? Do I just do one? So I decided I'm just going to fire from the hip and do one big summer, post-summer. Well, it's still technically summer, but here in Sweden, it's the autumn began early this year. So yeah, let me just begin with the big stuff, right? The Arc Haul. I've gotten plenty of good use out of this pack by now. And I get lots and lots and lots of questions and emails about the customizations. That Zpacks no longer does customizations. Sorry, people. I have no control over this. I also sorry to Joe and everyone at Zpacks, because I'm sure you guys are getting lots of questions. I guess I have the last customized Arc Haul or what have you. But anyhow, I really wish that they would make this front pocket as like an option. I mean, I'm sure they could charge a little bit for it or whatever, but I love this like big front pocket. It's great. I don't have to worry about any mesh breaking. This Dyneema is tough stuff, and it can fit quite a lot of stuff in there. So anyway, yeah, so I really love the Arc Haul. This is the best backpack I've ever had in my life. It's crazy that for like 710 grams, I believe, the frame and everything that the comfort, the way it carries the space, it's great, right? It's absolutely great. So there's that. Okay, now I'll bounce back to something that's a bit of a downer. Here it is, my REI. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. My REI Flash pillow, which I bought a couple years ago. It served me really well up until last, was it 3-4 days ago? I went on my last trip, and it died on me. I inflated, and it has a slow leak, and it deflates through the night. So I'm gonna have to get a replacement for this. I've seen plenty of interesting options out there, but you served me well. REI Flash pillow only weighed like I think 30 grams, right? So that's a shame, but yeah, I got good use out of it, so I can't complain. And since we're over here, and by the way, if you're curious as to what this crazy thing is, this is my little heater for my office, where I just put some candles in there, right? And then the heat passes into the little clay pot there. The hot air gets trapped in there, so it just basically traps all the warmth in there. Unrelated to backpacking gear, but okay. In here, we see the lightweight dinghy. Now, I recently, on this trip I just mentioned that I was on a few days ago, I really put this thing through the test. I've taken it on several trips now. I've been very happy with it. This was the first trip I took it on it was 2 or 3 different rivers, and for whatever reason the water was low. I noticed when I was on these small rivers, really like streams, that on the banks, I noticed that the water level had gone down. You could see on like rivers where the bank where it normally is, and it was lower, which is weird because we've been getting, I mean, Sweden, there's been plenty of rain. There has not been a drought this summer. So anyhow, I really gave this thing a beating. It went over countless stones. While I was sitting on it, I would hear from underneath me, I would hear like this, the sound of rocks just scraping the bottom, right? Now, and you might think I'm exaggerating here, but I'm talking, this happened hundreds of times, and sometimes it would get stuck on the stone, so where I would literally reach into the water, find the stone, push on it, and kind of, writhe my body around to like get the raft off from being stuck on jagged stones. Did I get lucky? Probably. But I definitely gave this a trial by fire. I was at the point where I just thought, like, there were several times where I went over these stones and I thought, this is it. The boat's gonna pop. It's gonna break. I already had my exit strategy in my head. I was actually at one point I went over some small rapids, maybe 1.2, you know, class, or 1.5, maybe 2. It's I go over some small rapids, and it hit some just nasty stones, and I thought, okay, and I looked in the distance, I was like, I see a dirt road over there. That's my exit point. I'm gonna have to pack up my broken raft and get out of here. So I'm impressed. Klymit. When I came home, I inflated it. I left it inflated for over 24 hours. I noticed some scratches on the underside of the fabric, but no leaks. It held air completely. It seems to be fine. So I'm very happy about that. Also very happy about the Cheapo paddles that I bought, which are down here. Just at like a hardware store that also sells, like here in Sweden it's called Clas Ohlson. It also sells kind of outdoor stuff too. They cost me like, I think it was like 200 crowns, something like that. And they work great. I don't have anything to compare them to, as I've said before. I'm new to pack rafting, but they work just fine. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll get myself a fancy set of paddles, but the weight is good. They're like, I think 300 and some grams, and they function great. They can pack up. I put the shafts in the side pockets, and then the paddles I can put in the big front pocket, so that works out quite well. Okay, where to go from here? Boom! The shelter drawer. Here's where I have all my shelter, right? Isn't that nice? All organized, right? In this dry bag here, I have my new tent. I recently replaced, I had my Big Agnes Flight Creek Ultralight 1, which I was using as my, like, kind of, it had a specific job. Mostly it was for my family camping, when I would just take one of my sons camping, and the two of us would share that. But as children do, they're growing, right? And I noticed on my last trip back in May, my oldest son and I, it was much tighter than the year before. So this is the Nemo Hornet 2-person tent. And here's the poles, right? And in here is the fly and the inner tent. And I also have a homemade ground sheet in there that I made out of this material over here, the SUL or SOL space blanket. That's stretchy, stronger, tougher, very good stuff for ground pads. Highly recommend that. But anyway, back over here. The weight, let's check it out. I don't remember exactly. This is no stakes. This is with the rain fly, the inner tent, and the ground cover included, and then the stuff sack too. So you see there, that's 725. Throw the stakes on there, and we're at 951 for a 2-person shelter. That's pretty good. And let me tell you though, calling it a 2-person shelter is a stretch. I cannot imagine what the 1-person Hornet is like. This is, for me, it's like a 1.5 person shelter. It is a palace for me. Plenty of room. Very happy. Easy to set up. I've been out with it now, you know, on several shorter trips, and very, very happy with it. And on one particular trip, there was high wind, heavy rain, and I was a bit concerned because I noticed when I was reading up on it that the hydrostatic head on the Rainfly is a little bit on the lower side. It's like, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 1200 or 1300, something like that. To call something waterproof, it technically has to be 1500 millimeters of hydrostatic head. So it's, you know, very water resistant, but no leaks, no misting. I mean, it's a double wall tent, you know, so it's, yeah, it's better about that. It's not like a, for example, in this Cuban dry sack here, I have my 6 Moon Design Skyscape X hybrid tent, which I still really like, right? It's about roughly half the weight of this, but the comfort factor and the space, really, and setting it up too, I much prefer this one. So I'm looking forward to this. I think I'm going to be using this, you know, just for my own, like, you know, trips too, not just for, you know, when I take my sons on camping too. Yeah, this year, I have my tarp in here. My tarp did not get very much use this year. My tarp and bivvies did not get as much use. It's because one thing is, oh yeah, I realized too that because it didn't fit in here, I have my other shelter. Oh boy, now I'm gonna have to dig it out. You see here, I have more space for backpacking stuff. Hold on, I gotta reach in here. Bear with me. Come on now. Okay, here it is. In this big bag. I don't, when I pack this tent, I don't use this bag. This is the bag that came with it. This is the Tarp Tent Cloudburst 3. Fantastic, huge tent. It's a real 3-person tent. You could definitely fit three people in there. My wife and I use it, and it's so roomy for the two of us. But what I was saying before is that the reason why I've not been getting as much tarp and bivy or tarp and net tent use this year is because I've been in situations where tents just were way more, I would say, both convenient and just kind of the smarter choice. Up in the fjälls, up in northern, or I guess central northernest Sweden, we're up above the tree lines. And there's, can be higher wind if you're exposed, and so having a dedicated, tent. It's not freestanding, but yeah, having a tent with poles. The poles are not in here; they're in the closet. I don't feel like getting those out, but yeah, it's a much. It can be a much better choice, right? Very difficult to be tarping up above the tree line. So the Tarp Tent Cloudburst 3, very happy with. It's like the Skyscape X tent. It's a hybrid tent. It's just a one, it's not a double wall tent. It's just a one wall tent. So there is one, big con. That's the elephant in the room, and that is condensation. Yes, there is some condensation, but because of the design, I have to give them credit. It's a brilliant design because it's like a kind of half circle type, design. The condensation kind of generally runs down the side. And to the net, and you don't really notice it as much. But in the morning, if you touch the sides of the wall, and in fairness, there's plenty of space with just 2 people, so it doesn't happen often. You will get a little bit wet. I remember on one night when we camped on a big grassy mat, and there was plenty of condensation. I moved, and I got up on my knees and got a face full of condensation. But it's really not that big of a deal, right? But for family backpacking too, it's a great choice. Uh-oh, my phone is blinking now. I'm running out of space here. But yeah, I guess that's it for the big gear roundup. Thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful. And yeah, happy trails to you. Goodbye.